Hi, this is my conversation with Jo Hoffberg about her experience dancing with leaders, what she likes, and what leaders should know. This was recorded on Zoom for Swing Channel TV, which you can find on twitch.tv platform. Give this video a thumbs up if you find conversation meaningful, subscribe not to miss future videos, and consider supporting this channel on Patreon. All the links can be found in the description box below. Thank you and enjoy the conversation.
On. Ugh, technology. Is this being recorded right now?
Yes,
It is being recorded.
it
Oh
is.
no. Oh no. Okay. All right. I'm ready. I think I'm ready. Do I need to
Now,
introduce myself? Are you going to introduce me?
yeah, welcome, Joe Hoffberg, straight from Berlin, right?
Yeah, from Berlin, from
How's
the kitchen in Berlin.
Yay. I'm doing this because I feel leaders don't know how followers feel in general, and we don't talk about to each other what we like and what we don't. Usually in classes, leaders talk to leaders and followers talk to followers, but sometimes the choices that leaders or followers make are more important than the technique itself. So that's why I'm talking about this.
Yeah.
Good. So you sent me some answers already, but let's talk about first of all, is there any message that you want leaders to hear?
I would say the general messages is have fun. See if you can learn both roles so you understand how to do your primary role better, because now you'll understand both sides. And just don't run your follower into other people. That would be excellent. So I would say that those are some just general key pieces of information.
That's the basics, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What makes a leader enjoyable to dance with for you?
Well, a number of things. If I'm going to work backwards, somebody who's got really nice floor craft, so they are aware of what else is happening in the room, because obviously, like, I'm there at the end of your arm, and it would be helpful if we were working on the same team instead. Social dancing is a great time to have fun. So maybe everything that you learned in class that day, you can just try like one thing on me, but otherwise, like, just have a good time. If you really are ready to like practice and you're still feeling super focused, book a private with a teacher instead of making that your like hardcore practice time, just because your partner might be on a different page. Something else, commitment. When I have a leader who is committed to their ideas and there's still some space for me, but can continue through what they were doing, that means I can build my ideas in between their ideas, and then I can use their momentum or their energy to help get me through my idea. Where sometimes if I'm like, here's this cool thing, and then a leader's like, I'm gonna stop and look at you. It's like, actually it was only 2 counts of cool, and now I have to make it more counts of cool, and I don't have that much cool. So like, be committed. And the last one that I wrote down, Martynas, for you was let's work towards our strengths. So for example, let's say I am dancing more lyrically that day, or like to that song, then you want to be aware of that so that you can choose, like, are you then going to dance more rhythmically, or are you going to join me in that way? Or let's say I am like totally fucking on my follow, and that you're like, okay, cool, like, let's see like what we can build here, because that set of options is open, versus if it's like, this person has a lot of creative ideas, but being in the exact place at the exact time I'm intending is not happening. How can I have a great time with the variables present? So I would say make sure that you have spent time like connecting to your partner to see where they are at, so that you can create something together, instead of any dancer just being like, well, this is me, deal with it. It's like, well, that's one way to do it, but you could also do it as like, what's our team gonna make today? So I would say that those are the big ones.
Cool. How often do you feel having something to say, and how often does it happen that you just want to dance and you don't have much to say within your dance, and just you want to be led, kind of led, inspired
You
by?
know, that changes night to night. I would say for a good while when I was training my lead and follow, because it was the weaker of my skill sets, that I wanted to spend more time dancing with people who were going to lead me through a lot more, just so I had more time. It was also just like how I wanted to express myself through my dancing. And recently, as I've been working more on solo, I have been feeling like, I want more space to kind of create these ideas, or like hear something in the music, process it, and then put it on top of like some general outlines, but not exact space. So I think it kind of depends on what I'm working on in my own dancing, but also sometimes it's just like what's possible. So let's say I've been dancing for a really long time that night and I still have energy in my body, but my brain is like, I can't get the information to the rest of me, but I'm still having fun. I'll typically find partners that have a clearer voice or like have more ideas, because I'm like, I can follow, but I don't have a whole lot to say right now. So like, let's kind of do that. And some people are like, this is great. And other times maybe I find partners that are like, I'm really tired, but I totally want to dance. It's like, I'll take care of it. So I think it also kind of depends on like, are you hungry? Do you need more water? How much space is there? Like, I follow better when there's more space, and I have more fun jazzing around when there's less space, because I have more control over my body. But that also means that as a partner, you are now less responsible for where my body is, because I'm saying, hey, I'm going to manage more of this. And in a smaller space, I think you need both partners being more mindful of it, because there's not a lot of space to express yourself.
Thank you. Are there any moves that leaders like doing but you don't?
I would say historically, the moves that I'm not super excited about are the ones that like slide across my stomach or slide across your stomach. Like, I mean, like, sure, if you got a six pack, sure, it's going to be interesting. But otherwise, in general, I feel like, let's have a different kind of conversation before we're doing that. And also like, don't touch my stomach. So I'd say like, that's the big one. And only one pretzel per night. If you're going to do a pretzel, which I recommend not doing, only one per night, the entire night. So you only get to use that once.
With every partner, or just in general?
No, one per night. You get to spend it one time.
All right. How about shoulders or hips? When leaders lead you through hips or shoulders?
So it depends. Like, I feel like I think the general rule of thumb is when you know how to do something well, it's often going to be slightly more appropriate or more comfortable than if you don't know how to do it well. So just like, I think a sugar push is a really fun move when it's done well. But when a sugar push is not done well, I don't want to do a sugar push with that person. So I think it's really the quality of what it is. So like, in general, I'm comfortable with my shoulders being touched, but there are certain angles where I'm like, that's like not as comfortable. Depending on the person, I'm okay if my hips are being touched. And really it just comes down to like, how comfortable is the connection. So I think some of that comes together with the level. Like, often higher level leaders have made enough mistakes to know how to make something comfortable. So most likely by the time that we're trying it, it's like, all right, so they know like 9 ways not to do this, which means they understand a good way to possibly make it happen.
So they kind of have to go through those 9 ways.
Basically, that's what learning is, unfortunately. A lot of learning opportunities, and then you hit gold.
Good. How experienced has a leader to be for you to enjoy dancing with them, and how big the set of moves has to be?
Okay. So I would say as of recently, before the time of Corona, I was enjoying dancing with lower level leaders because I was practicing my rhythm. And so my goal was, how can I make sure that I'm staying exactly on beat, even though I can really clearly feel that my partner is not on beat? So it was like, okay, how can I make this as challenging as possible? So I'm still being present to what information they're giving me, but that was just an added challenge that I knew I could take on while dancing with them. And because they only had a couple of moves, it actually made it really easy for me to like multitask, where if I was dancing with somebody at my level, I can only process so much because both of us can process a lot more information at the same time. So I am totally happy to dance with newer dancers, assuming that they are also like, they have a general sense of like how not to yank on things. Like, that's the biggest thing, is like, even if somebody is not wildly dynamic, that's fine. But like, in the same way that you wouldn't yank on a puppy, I don't want to be yanked on. So like, I think that's important to know. And otherwise, I think just a couple of moves are necessary to be able to have a lot of fun. And I think like an 8 count basic in like closed-ish or like side-by-side-ish position that you can travel around with. So whether or not they're next to you or in front of you or to the other side, like I think that can be a really flexible move. From closed, and 8 count from closed to open. Swing outs and circles are pretty great. Circles and 8 counts or 6 counts, and then like pass bys and tuck turns. Like I think that right there, if you have those moves, there's a lot that you can create on top of that. And I think that's really where musicality and playing with rhythm comes into play. But you need a couple of outlines, and I think that those are some basic outlines. So I think that all of that's fairly intermediate vocabulary, like new intermediate vocabulary. Now, if we're getting to higher tempos, it's a different game, but I'll say like, let's say standard Lindy Hop tempo, like those are some really solid basics that you have to have in your tools. And those are moves that we work on, like no matter what level dancer we are, like you're never done working on your swing out. So it's not like, oh, I learned it. It's like, okay, cool. You've got 10 more years. So keep practicing. So it's kind of one of those.
Cool. Do you mind if leaders are repetitive?
Within reason. So if they're like swing outs, I can work with swing outs. If they're like, if it's kind of a loop of moves, then I can also work with that, because then it's like, all right, well, I'm recognizing the loop. Now, how can I make this more entertaining for myself? Like, I understand that's part of my responsibility as a partner. But when it's not as fun as, let's say, it's a mini dip. Like, by the time you've hit a third mini dip in a song, I feel like, all right, like maybe points or like a circle or something, or a pretzel, like definitely no more than one pretzel. So like, I think like the big flashy moves, really only once. So it just depends on which moves are repetitious. Triple steps, I would like more than one triple step the whole dance. So it's I think time and place.
How often do you get pretzels?
Well, now that it's not the like early 2000s, it's less often. So this is also an experiment to see how many people Google the pretzel later and are like, what is this move that was talked about? So I don't know, maybe you'll end up having to teach it in Lithuania.
Oh no. And I guess you will get more pretzels from now on.
Maybe. Actually, is there a Balboa pretzel? Do you know, Martynas, have you done a Balboa pretzel?
No. I'm all about basics and basic moves.
Okay, cool.
How do you think beginner followers feel what they are looking for?
Ooh, now that's a really great question. I think in general, there is a sense of, I want to come, I want to have a good time. There's a good chance that they've seen this like on TV or in the movies, or they saw a group of people dancing. And there's a little bit of a fantasy that I think all of us have when you want to learn a new skill. And it's the dream of what you're working towards. Like, I want to look like that. I want that skill. Like what that stands for, what that represents is really interesting. So how do I have that? And I think part of the challenge is if they don't know how to express that or explain what that actually is, then I think dancers will come in, or humans will come into the dance world and be like, it's supposed to be this amazing thing. And it's like, can you be more specific? And it's like, no. You're like, okay, so we should work on like how to explain what it is that you want. And so I think it can be challenging when partnerships show up, when a leader and a follower are like two humans show up and they're like, let's dance together. And it's like, well, I want it to look this way. It's like, well, you have to like have that conversation. But I think the general note is having a dream of like, I want to get to dance like that. I want to get to move with another human and hear the music, and I want to have fun, and I want to get to have fun in a group of people. So I think there's various levels. I want to connect to my partner better, my human, if they brought a human. I'm looking to maybe get some exercise. I'm looking to make new friends, and that's the community portion. And I think it's also kind of living out a dream, or like working towards a dream that you could have. And otherwise, it's feeling comfortable. Like I'm going to say across the board, and I'm going to assume for leaders as well, you want to feel comfortable when you're learning something new, which I know is really hard, because in some ways the definition of learning is being slightly uncomfortable, because you are working towards things that you don't know exist, or you haven't figured out how to like put them together yet. So it's the balance of like, I'm uncomfortable and it's fun, versus I'm comfortable and I have to exit. So I think that's what they're looking for, is to have a good time with some fun people and feel only a little uncomfortable.
I totally agree. One final question.
Yeah.
So I've done my share of that. When dancing with teachers at festivals,
Yeah.
you dance with a teacher follower and you throw all the moves that you have. How do you feel about it? That
I think there's time. I think there's a time and a place. So, like maybe a general rule of thumb. I don't know if the other follows agree with me. I feel like before midnight, I feel like I am available. I get it. I still feel like I'm kind of on. After midnight, if I'm still hanging around and I'm hanging in the group of friends and we do end up dancing, just go easy on me. Because remember, teachers are humans too. And we're also there to have fun. And even though you maybe saw us at work earlier, we also might just be there to just kick it with our friends or to kind of find inspiration in different ways. So I would say if you as a leader were oh, I have to try all of the things, please do that before midnight, because if also I start having a glass of wine at midnight, different version of me is showing up on the dance floor. So I'd say earlier is better. Otherwise, in general, if you're let's test out all of the moves, I think booking a private is a smarter idea, because now you'll actually get proper feedback where I can be hey, that was really cool. Here's a small change that you can make that will make it even more comfortable or open up new possibilities. So I think as that might be, you'll actually have to tell me, Martynas, if it is, but in some ways it feels like it's a way to have a conversation of what's working, and it's just getting a lot of information in there. And it feels well, that might not necessarily be the best to see how, what is or isn't working. Because let's say there's not enough space and I can't really follow it, but it was a good lead. Maybe the leader is oh, I didn't lead that very well. And it's actually you did, but somebody ran into me. So I think if you're trying to test things in a controlled environment, like a private lesson. Otherwise, when you're out on the social dance floor, I think just a couple of choiceful moves, do that. And then that's also what makes it a memorable experience, instead of being memorable because it was have you danced with that leader who does all of the things? Because the follows talk. So at some point, word gets around on who that person is.
Cool. Thank you, Jill. Thank you for sharing your experience.
Of course. And good luck to everybody who is practicing during social distancing and during social isolation. And now's a great time to get creative and continue reaching out to the other members in the community, just to make sure nobody's feeling too lonely practicing by themselves.
Do you have anything to offer to people, how to practice, how to take classes?
Why, yes. So I have an online dance school called ilindy.com. And if you head over there, I think we still have another couple of weeks to go on a COVID-19 special. It now might be called something else. It might be social distancing special. And then there's over 1,000 clips that you can work on. And there's solo training, and that's just to keep your endurance up. There's technical training, so turning drills, so in case you've been wanting to learn how to spin on one foot. And there's a whole bunch of other moves. So if you are lucky enough to have somebody that you are comfortable practicing with and the space to do so in your home, we definitely have a couple of things. So I would say that's a simple place to go, is ilindy.com.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, and I hope to see you soon.
Likewise, Martynas. Have a good one.
Bye.
Ciao.